We're going to do a little series on what type of medicines you should have with you in case of an emergency. So first we're going to talk about diarrhea. Now, you may not realize, but diarrhea is the second leading cause of infant death when you consider the whole world. Some go up to 50% even, because what is happening with diarrhea, besides emptying your intestines, right? It's also pulling a lot of water and electrolytes and shooting them out your body. So you basically got dehydration is going to happen because you don't have enough fluid in your system. The electrolytes are going to be low. It could even affect calorie intake. So these things really, and it's extremely unpleasant to have. It's very difficult to accomplish something if you need to go to the bathroom all the time. And so, if you look a lot of literature and things like that, or CDC recommendations, and basically come to Hi, Mike Kennedy with you. Diarrhea. We talk about survival medicine that you could have with you that you might need, and anti-diarrheal medicine is very important. With diarrhea, you flush water out of your system. You could become dehydrated. You're flushing out electrolytes. So your system is going to be very imbalanced. And of course, it just is the inconvenience of having to go to the bathroom, multiple times. And that could put a crimp in your ability to try to survive until you're rescued or whatever. So looking at literature and things in my own personal experience, iodium, or the generic name of Loperamide, HCl hydrochloride, is generally what is found to be the most effective. And I personally settled on something slightly different. In other words, this has simethicone, which is an anti-gas medicine too. What that does, if you have pockets of gas in your system, it breaks it up into smaller bubbles, and it's able to pass through your system easier. And usually, if I have diarrhea, I have gas too. Now, I'll admit I'm a little different in that I've had surgery, and I have a shortened colon, which they call shortened bowel disorder now, and that makes you more prone to diarrhea and things like that. So there's basically three types of diarrhea in general. The overwhelming amount of diarrhea, maybe 80% of it, is from bacteria. Then a much smaller amount is from viruses. And then again, you have diarrhea that is actually caused by protozoans living in your system, or some type of parasite or whatever. But basically, the first one could last 2 or 3 days. The bacterial one, the viruses might last 7 days, but the protozoan sits there in your body and multiplying and, just being alive there and being really happy they're there. That can last for months. And it's part of the life cycle of some of these things. You got to figure the point of life for each organism is to survive and reproduce. Well, you could say we're part of the life cycle of a lot of these things. In other words, if we were out, back in the caveman days still, you would, and I shouldn't say that because, of course, it happens in undeveloped countries too. Basically, you go to the bathroom and someone else contacts it somehow, even though they don't know it, see it, or feel it, and they get it. So this organism can continue to multiply and spread its range through its human hosts. Now, in countries with good sanitary situations where, in the United States, just about everywhere, people will either have some type on-site septic sewer system, or people are maybe plumbed directly into a wastewater treatment facility. And but even with something like an outhouse, you're putting the waste in one spot. So the idea of it being, traveled all over the place is less likely. So I think this would be our number one medicine to have. Now, this is a different medicine, but I'm just showing this card to give you an idea that they can be carded like this. So you just break it off what you need and poke through. Although these can be, if you're an elderly gentleman with arthritis in their hands, these can be kind of difficult to deal with sometimes. But, they hold the medicine in place, which means if it's in your little, kit that you're going to bring with you places, they can sit in there, and even if they rattle around, they aren't going to get broken up. What I found a lot of times when carrying medicine in some type of container where it can move, inevitably, when you actually want to use this medicine, you're going to open it up, and it's going to be all broken up, and it's going to be very difficult to determine what one dose is. And normally you would be taking 2 of these iodiums, and then, or, the generic form, and then you're going to be taking 1 if you have another bout, and take another one if you have another one. And it's very effective. Now I'll mention, at one time, go back to the dark ages before it seemed like everybody was on drugs, they had this thing called Donagel PG. Well, the Donagel part was kind of a kaopectate type thing, but the PG was paregoric. And I'll tell you, you could buy that over the counter. You didn't even have to sign for it, and now it's not available. You can buy Donagel, but not with a paregoric. But that would, boom, stop it immediately. There'd be no further thing after 1 dose of that. It was a liquid. But, of course, people must have been abusing it. In other words, can you imagine, taking more of a medicine to get the paregoric, the addictive part of it, and what that would do to your system, as far as you would be extremely constipated. I would think that would be very, very uncomfortable. But they don't sell that anymore. But, and I found personally too, now you may differ, the pink products are kind of like Pepto-Bismol or the kaopectate, kind of the white tiny chalky liquid, as opposed to the pink chalky liquid for Pepto-Bismol. I don't find them that effective against diarrhea. If you have your stomach is kind of upset or whatever, they seem to work better for that. But I would say that if I was going to keep something with me, which I do, it would definitely be the iodium, or in my case, I'm doing the combo version where we have both the iodium and this, the generic, and the Cementicone, which is basically what's in Gas-X and things. And you might just be, we're going to handle the series as you already have it, not necessarily how you prevent it. But it's interesting that I was reading this article about this drug called Travel with the N after it. And this can't stop diarrhea, but it can prevent most of it from happening. But evidently, when our troops go into areas, even though they're, they get the MREs that are all, no bacterium and packaged so carefully, them knowing what hygiene is and everything, a huge amount of the military forces sent somewhere will have some type of diarrhea, up to maybe 50%. And, some people will have it mildly, but there's going to be a certain number of people who can't function. So they were saying basically this diarrhea phenomenon takes out 20% of your ability of your army. So if you sent 1,000 people somewhere, they can only do the job of 800. And this Travelin is really interesting because it's a medicine to take so you won't get it when you know you're going into an area where it might be prevalent. And at least in this thing I was reading, it was like 80 to 90% effective, which kind of matched the idea of most diarrhea being from some type of bacteria. And this has, you can't be if you're lactose intolerant, you can't take it. But it's made out of the colostrum of cow's milk. When cows give birth, the first part of the milk that they have is kind of more of this yellowish, little gooey type milk, and it's just chock full of all kinds of antibiotics and things like that. So in this medicine, they've taken that, whether they've concentrated or pulled things out of it or whatever, but they put it in this pill, and you basically take maybe 2 at the beginning and 1 with each meal, and like I say, it's 90% effective, so that's pretty good. So that would definitely be something to have if you knew you were going to a foreign country, and to combat. Then they just usually don't call it just diarrhea; they call it traveler's diarrhea or TD. But there we go. I think, at least in my experience, it's a really important medicine to have. And if you're in a survival situation, say, I'm in a car, there's no cell service or whatever, I break down, I find some water, and hopefully I know how to treat it and have the means to treat it. But maybe I don't. Maybe, it's too wet to make a fire or something like that to do the water, or I don't have anything to purify the water with. And I may actually be forced to drink that water. And then you could get, sick. And it's not going to help you necessarily to be there and have all of that water flushing out of you. But, in a case of being either sick and not dehydrated, or dehydrated and sick, having the water in you is going to be better in the long run. And usually, like in the United States, especially if you've left someone your travel plans, that the average time for someone to be rescued is 72 hours. So you basically are thinking about those 3 days and doing what you should be doing during those 3 days. But again, even though you're careful in things, these soldiers, doing all this stuff, they get water purification tablets, they get their food, it's basically hermetically sealed in all these pouches, and they still end up getting it. So even if you're being super careful, it's very easy to cross-contaminate things again, even with boiling water. Someone takes a cup, they fill up their metal water container, they boil the water in it, and then they take it, pour it in their cup and drink it. Oh, there they go. That cup still had, bacteria on it because you dipped it into the water. So you cross-contaminate right there. And there are other ways that it can happen too. So it's just extremely important, I would say, to have some of this type of medicine with you in case you do cross-contaminate something, even though you have the proper equipment. And it's just going to make everything a lot simpler for you if you have this with you. And of course, it would be in a type of kit that you could stick in your pocket. Now, this is about maybe a little larger than an Altoids tin. But the thing about this that is nice is it's round edges. It's kind of flexible, so it fits into pockets better than an Altoid tin. Now, an Altoid tin is more rugged and different things, so there'd be reasons why you might use that. But we're tricking out this little kit to have the type of medicines in it. And I'd probably have 4 or so of these in here. But putting that in there and having that with me, and you know, you could get something from a restaurant even or something. I mean, it isn't just necessarily, our idea of you're trapped in the wilderness and you've got your knife and you're going to make everything and survive. Well, there's a lot of other more subtle things that can happen that you would like to have this medicine for too. So please think about that. Next time we're going to talk about, and this is, I didn't have the small carded plain iodiums to show you, and this is Benadryl, and we're going to talk about that too, why this should be in your emergency medical kit. Bye.